Welcome to this edition of Stern News 117, here from Neuchâtel, Switzerland. Switzerland gives us an idea of a planetary federation because it has known how to ally the differences on a political ground. In this beautiful place, I am presenting today to you Stern News 117. You will learn incredible things about what a Kiily-Tokurt has to say, about galactic trade, and many more topics. Today, on this Stern News, I am inviting you to travel the galaxy again, so fasten your seatbelts and engage. I will begin to share with you today my encounters and meetings with a Kiily-Tokurt. It has been quite challenging because I've always wanted to meet, for many years, a Kiily-Tokurt in person. And I've been propelled into the discovery of a whole culture. This adventure brought me further than what I had expected. My purpose, my intention was to ask questions to Kiily-Tokurt regarding what had happened into our star system during the occupation, what were the involvement, and I was really intrigued by the fact that they love and protect their children, but yet sell the children of other species to predator species, like reptilians, for instance. So, few species have fascinated me as much as they have. Despite their notorious reputation and their documented involvement in clandestine agreements with hostile factions within Earth governments and military, as well as their membership in the famous Alliance of the Six, I found myself drawn by an intense curiosity to better understand their civilization from their own perspective. The Kiily-Tokurt, they've always stood apart, right, from the rest of the known galactic powers. Fiercely independent by nature, they have never sought integration into the wider interstellar community. Rather than identifying themselves as a member of any collective order, they proudly define themselves as sovereign galactic traders, accountable to no authority beyond their own, not even beyond their own laws and traditions. They have consistently, rejected membership, not only in the Galactic Federation of Worlds, but even in the Galactic Guild of Merchants, refusing to submit to their commerce to external regulation or prohibition. Their reputation as merchants, however, is inseparable from the darker aspects of their economy. The Kiily-Tokurt have long been associated with the trade of prohibited goods, including advanced weaponry, restricted technologies, biological materials, and most notoriously, the trafficking of sentient beings, including humans. To many civilizations, these practices alone have made them outcast. Yet I could not help but wonder how the Tokurt themselves justified such activities, considering their
also renowned love for their children and emphasis on their protection and education. Did they truly regard human trade as ordinary commerce? Or were they conscious of the moral implication that other cultures attach to them? It was precisely this question that I hoped one day to explore, not through second-hand reports or official records, but in the direct conversation with the representative of their people. So I met one. The meetings occurred during a period of 4 days on board Thor Han station, and then many other days following. 4 other days. I will go through with you. Thor Han was doing the intermediary. So the first meeting started on July 19, 2026, on board Thor Han station. Kiily-Tokurt female ambassador, a trade ambassador, Jezya, visited this star system to discuss trade agreements regarding the Jupiter hub with the Galactic Federation of Worlds representatives in the star system, meaning Admiral Jor-El and external liaison Thor Han Eredyon. It was the perfect occasion for me to finally meet one of them and ask all the questions I had in mind. So my first encounter with Jezya, the Kiily-Tokurt ambassador, took place in a lounge. In the official quarters of the High Command on board the station, facilitated by Thor Han. I can't hide that I was feeling a little bit nervous because I had anticipated so much this meeting for years, since the beginning of the Soul Wars. So when I entered the meeting room, I felt at first the wide field of consciousness, an anchored presence of a new species I was meeting for the first time. In many lives, it was indeed the first physical contact I made with this species. So I never came into interface with such a frequency. A tall, thin, white lady in a white and silver uniform was staring at me with deep obsidian eyes. Her skull was elongated. She had long, silky, creamy white hair. Typical of the Kiily-Tokurt, her forehead was bald. And she had this really weird whitish skin. She has no eyebrows, but white eyelashes, a very narrow nose, a little bit bumpy like this, thin lips, and her face was also narrow. Her neck was longer than normal humans, and very graceful. She was very graceful. She had slender fingers and long nails, painted white, shimmery kind of white shade. She wore no jewelry. She had no particular expression on her face. And so she saluted me with slight bowing of her head. And then she continues to stare at me. I can tell you the obsidian black eyes were very disturbing. Because there was no pupils, so you don't know, where she's looking at. But so it's really present, So after a while, I became comfortable. Thor Han, of course, was in the room. He introduced me to her and her to me. And it said that she was here to negotiate commercial deals with the Federation regarding trade agreements with the Jupiter Hub. So he told me that. And so she was one of the many Kiily-Tokurt trade ambassadors serving within their Ministry of Commerce. And so I greeted her using the customary salute of the Galactic Federation of Worlds, and she acknowledged it with her own people salute, which was like this. Her, me, up. Interesting. I've never seen this salute before, like this. Incredible. Across the galaxy, almost intelligent species has developed some form of non-verbal greeting, allowing mutual respect to be expressed even when no common language is shared. So for this meeting, British English has been selected as our spoken language. Thor Han then invited us to sit together on a curved sofa surrounding a small circular table. At last, the moment I had anticipated for so many years had arrived. Sitting opposite me was an official representative of the Kiily-Tokurt people, prepared to answer the many questions I had. I long wanted to ask to one of them. They're the most enigmatic and controversial civilizations. So during these interviews, there's something I need to specify. She doesn't say Nebu for the grace, she says Do. And I always employ the term Nebu because the Federation says Nebu, but some other cultures call them Do. And in fact, Do is a term that is used throughout the galaxy to signify the gray species. Grays, as we call grays, Do. Nebu is the title of the Orion group, the Dominion. That's different. The Nebu are the Orion Greys. The Ebal Betelgeuse and all their friends. That's the Dominion, the empire that the Greys built in Orion. That's the Nebu, means Dominion, and Do is the species, the type, Greys. So that is something I wanted to really get cleared, because I never had the occasion to do it, because I was in Nebu, because the other Greys never bothered us, but so because the Nebu, the Do as well. So here we go. So my first question for her, after a salutation, I said, thank her for, being here, accepting to see me, answering my questions, etc. And she replied to me that she was curious to meet me. So, wow. But I say, wow, like, oh my God, they know me, Of course they do. Not because, wow, I don't admire these people. I want to be clear with you. They're assholes. They have been assholes. Pure psychopath assholes with us, okay? They're traitors. So my engagement with her in the conversation was study and curiosity. I have no plan to make friends with these people, okay? So it's just for the information. I want to get that clear. I have no sympathy for these people. No sympathy for them. Though, see what happened. The first question I asked her was that I had been very intrigued by their culture for a long time. I said to her, and I'm going to read my notes now that I took from this conversation with the replay with my implant. So I said to her, you have no allegiance to any organizations, and your civilization stands apart in your unique spirit of independence on the galactic scene. However, you were members of the Alliance of the Six. I said, let's start by this. Tell me more about your spirit of independence and the reasons why you decided to join the Nebula Alliance. In that question I asked her, I wanted to know why they joined the Nebula Alliance, though they are known, the Kiily-Tokurt are known to be independent spirit. She replied to me this. Very interesting. She doesn't say the Alliance of the Six, she says the Six Alliance. That's a, language translation. They certainly in their language put the words in different order. So listen to that now. I'm going to read her answer. She answered this. The Six Alliance was a conglomerate of 6 independent civilizations: Nebu, Kiily-Tokurt, Sikar, Solipsirai, Xorog, and Maita. We know that. While the Nebu Alliance was the super hive integration of various DOE hive collectives, centralized in the Kaaba cluster, the Orion Nebula. Our participation in the Six Alliance was based solely on commercial interest. The Kiily-Tokurt never surrendered their sovereignty, nor did any of the other 5 members. Each of the 6 retained complete political and military independence. The alliance existed not as a unified government or empire, but as a framework for economic cooperation and the coordinated exploitation of conquered worlds. Its purpose was simple. Rather than competing against one another for the same resources, member civilizations agreed to divide the profits equally. This eliminated costly conflicts between allies and ensured that every participant benefited from territorial acquisitions, regardless of which member had carried out the conquest. It was an alliance founded not on mutual generosity, but on mutual profit. We did not join together to give to one another. We joined together to take from others, sharing the spoils according to established agreements. All 6 remained free at all times. Under the terms of the alliance, if one member civilization occupied or secured control over a world, the resources extracted from that world, including raw materials, technology and living stock, were distributed equally among all 6 members. In the case of Earth, in accordance with those agreements, the Kiily-Tokurt were entitled to 1/6 of all harvested living stock. End of quote. I said humans. She said yes. Now, before I go further in this conversation report, I need to issue a trigger warning. There are things we've known. Yeah, the Kiily-Tokurt were trading abductees to sell them to others. They're traders. They're illegal. What they call livestock trade for us is a horrifying thing, and it is. And the Federation considers it is a horrifying thing, so they never want to have anything to do with Kiily-Tokurt. However, Federation tried to include them in the Federation to have control of them, on them, and force them to stop the slave trade. But they failed to this day. Now, maybe something's going to be possible. Let's go further. So, I have to issue you a trigger warning. Some truth we know may be hard to hear. Sometimes we don't want to go into the real deep depth of truth. Because the information is not because it is secret that we don't want to talk about it. It's sometimes because it is horrible. It is horrible. So there are things that Jezya is going to say that I'm going to tell you that she said to me confirm what I knew, but that may be difficult to hear, and she has a very cold way of saying things. So yeah, okay, I get on with it. So I said, speaking of living stock, one of the things that first drew me to learn more about your people was a paradox I could never reconcile. The Kiily-Tokurt are renowned for the devotion they show their own children and for the lengths they will go to protect them. Yet, your civilization has also become infamous for trafficking the children of other species as living food stock for the Sikaar. How do you reconcile these two realities? I asked her. She had this cold look. She stared at me for a moment silently like this. And she said this. It still freezes me to the bones. She said, "Do you have children?" I said, "No, I don't." "Do your people have children? And do they love their children?" I said, "Of course they do." And I say, even if myself, I don't have children, I love all children very much as my own. And I would do more than my very best, sacrifice everything I have to protect and defend any children against predators. She answers. She said, "Yet you trade children of what you consider subspecies on your planet, Earth, for food. We are the same." I said, "I don't eat others' sentient beings' children." She didn't move. And she said, "My civilization engages in trade, just as yours does." I said, "I'm trying to encourage people on Earth to abandon practices that inflict suffering on other living beings." I replied to her. And I added, "And I don't know. I know they will." I said, "I know they will. Humanity is changing. And as societies evolve, they move away from consuming flesh altogether. The more advanced civilization becomes," I said, "the less acceptable such practices become." And she's from an advanced civilization. She said, "We no longer consume flesh either," she said calmly. And I said, "But you're an advanced civilization. And advanced human civilizations also reject the idea of trafficking sentient beings as living stock." She stared at me and she said, "We are not human." Silence. Thor Han was sat at the table saying nothing, holding space. Pretty silent. The air was a bit cold and electric. And the tension was growing. And then Thor Han he cleared his throat and he said, he just cleared his throat, and before he spoke, I said, "Yeah, but I still don't understand. So consequently, humans are for you like a subspecies," I said. And she said, "Yes, but we don't trade only humans." And Thor Han said, "All right." He leaned forward a bit, put the elbows on the table like this, frowned his eyebrows, and he said, "It is above all a question of perspective. Each of you is approaching these matters from a fundamentally different moral and cultural framework." Yeah, okay. Try to ease the tension. But there was one question I wouldn't leave unanswered. I asked her, And I'm warning you. Trigger warning, I ask her. That 1/6 share of the living stock taken from Earth. Well, where are all these people now? Where are they? And how many this roughly represent as number? And she answered like straight away into me, without hesitation. Approximately 16 million units. 16 million people they've abducted and sold. 16 million people from Earth alone. And she just pronounced the figure with detached precision of an accountant reciting an inventory, not the fate of millions of human lives. So where are they? I asked. She answered, you prefer not to know. At that point, Thor Han grabbed my hand and whispered to me gently, Elena, the war is over. The Kiily-Tokurts joined the good side now, and they have been helping us to find the hybrid cargoes transporters. I know, I replied to him. But I know that. They're trying to join the good side. They're joining it, I know. But, it's however hard to stomach. And Thor Han said, you wanted the truth. You have it from our own mouth. There's a profound difference between reading about atrocities and hearing them acknowledged by someone who belonged to the civilization that committed them. We often speak of what the Greys did, or what Kiily-Tokurt did, in abstract terms, as history, testimony, or intelligence reports. But actually sitting across the table from a Kiily-Tokurt representatives and hearing those facts spoken in our own voice, it gives the fact an entirely different weight. Every word was delivered without hesitation, stripped of emotion, no apology, no justification. Stark simplicity with which he described those events made them reality all the more unsettling. The horror did not lie in the numbers she told me, but in the complete absence of an emotional framework through which humans instinctively process such suffering. To her, she was recounting just facts. But to me, she was speaking of millions of individual human lives, Whether I was shocked or not could not alter what had happened. The past was fixed. Nothing said in this room would restore the lives that had been lost. Yet the being sitting opposite me had agreed to meet, to answer difficult questions, honestly, and to engage in a dialogue that, however comfortable, might never have been possible before. That realization slowly shifted my thoughts away from this immovable past and towards the uncertain future. Still, I knew that no meaningful futures could be built upon denial, silence. That was an opportunity, Before reconciliation can even begin, truth must be faced, right? Wounds cannot heal while they remain hidden. History cannot simply be forgotten just because it is painful, dismissed. No. The stolen lives would never be returned. No conversation could undo that tragedy. The past cannot be rewritten, but it can be acknowledged, understood, and learned from. Only then, and only then, is it possible to build something different for those who come after us.
The Kiily-Tokurt were called the tall whites. You have these stories of Area 51 where you see testimonies of tall whites working with the, I would say, the shadow side of the US military. The tall whites have been a name that was also associated with positive extraterrestrials, the Altians. So when you hear the name tall white, you need to know who you're talking about. Were it people looking like humans or people looking like Jezya? The agendas were totally different, totally different. When you hear the tall white stories linked with Area 51, these were the Kiily-Tokurt. My friend Stephen Chua, who worked in Area 51, had to do with them. He even went into a Kiily-Tokurt ship. I related all of this in my book, Area 51, Conversation with an Insider. The tall whites won't be the ones to create the first contact with humans. I'm talking here referring to the Altians because, of course, the Kiily-Tokurt are not going to make contact with humans, I would say, anymore until they change their trading practices. Well, first contact will be with human-looking star people, like you and I. Blonde, preferably because there's genetics, Nordic type looking, Alpha Centaurians, and also Pleiadians like Thor Han. It will be first the people who look like humans and who are not very scary for anyone, you know. This first civilian contact will occur when Earth will begin to unite in peace. That's why the deep state wants to create all these division games, you know. People have been so hyped with first contact, so hyped, that it must not become an escaping, not a reason to stop doing what you're doing and hope first civilian contact will be people who come and save you, kill your dictators, arrest your predators. They are not going to do that. Because the people of Earth is going to do that. The people of Earth is going to take care of the Earth human problem. Because the star people will not steal the victory of the people of Earth. This planet has the whole potential to become a galactic civilization. It's not even a planetary civilization for now. The division games are very, very clever. If you want to move forward as a planetary civilization and a galactic civilization when we will join the Galactic Federation of Worlds, well, the United Alliance of Nataru, that's what you become part of when you join the Galactic Federation of Worlds. You become part of the United Alliance of Nataru. And that is an extraordinary thing. It's really, really, really incredible. Part of this great community, you know. So that's about first contact. Now about Nordic extraterrestrials. There's a lot of false information out there. There's so much to say about Nordic extraterrestrials. You have the good people from the Federation who respect the Prime Directive, who do not contact people who respect free will. And then you have the fake Nordics, hybrids created by the military in the dumps. And these fake hybrids pretend to be good people. They work with dark sides of the military and they never say their name because they don't have a home planet. They were made on Earth. They just call themselves Nordics. And there's the Nordics as well, who work for war extraterrestrials and work for bad organizations. You have the people from Aldebaran, you have the people from Alcyone. Well, these ones are going into the right direction. You know, all of this is distraction. What we want in the Federation is that people of Earth evolve in consciousness. Understand who they are, understand what the universe is, what space is, what creator is. You. Your potential, and then you will be ready. You're ready in the free will, in the desire to meet ETs. And that's been exploited a lot. But are you ready in your spirit? Are you ready to welcome diversity? Are you ready to welcome peace? To unite? To present yourself as a man or a woman of Earth? Of the great community of Earth? Are you ready to present yourself as a planetary culture? United among your differences? Because if you're not going to be ready to join the greater community of the galaxy. But differences are way beyond the norms that you know on Earth. The greater galactic community, the UGAN, the United Galactic Alliance of Nataru, work not in a common thought. I mean, common thought for the greater good of the galaxy, of course, but not in a uniformity of thought. They work in the same purpose. Justice, balance, peace, and that is what it is about. Working in a common purpose. If you don't start to do this on Earth, you will not be ready to do the same thing galactic-wise. But this time is coming. I can tell you. I've seen it. I know you are ready. Because in your heart, you start to awaken and to understand who you are. And I'm here. I came from 45 million light years away from here to help you discover this. I identify myself as a Terran because I've been living here but I know who I am, and you know who I am. Now, discover who you are, and that is when you are ready, when you know who you are. Not as a people of Earth or starseed or... No. As the very nature of your soul, the very nature of your being. When one day you embrace the awareness, not the knowing, the awareness that you are a fractal of Creator. Not only knowing it in your mind, but knowing it in you. Awaken the sparkle. Hope is unity. What is unity? It is not an uniformity of thought. This is not what unity is. Unity is an infinite diversity of thoughts, culture, backgrounds, traditions, identities coming together as a federated group. Everybody brings their own individuality. And in this individuality, their sovereignty, the fact that they stand for who they are and their independence. And then they federate, they ally to work together for a common purpose. This is what humanity on Earth is going towards too. A common purpose. And what is this common purpose? This is the growth of a civilization. This is a civilization aimed to thrive in abundance, in strength, strong with defenses, strong with hope, and abundant with food, with natural resources, clean air, clean waters. The waters are so important. They are the mothers of life. And so are the waters of our emotions. In order to unite, we need to accept differences. When differences become so big, they become one. When diversity embraces infinity, diversity becomes one. And we realize that we are one with the whole. Unity for a common purpose means that you're not going to make alliance with elements that want to destroy unity, elements that work with for chaos, for division, people who insult others, who put service to self and ego before the community, before the common purpose. They have their personal purpose. Is their personal purpose fitting with the purpose of the community, the purpose of advancing into something abundant and successful? If they're not into this same purpose, they do not have a place in this work for this common purpose. This is why we need to be very careful about how humanity has been groomed to give the other cheek, to be all for giving peace and love to even those who do not want goodness for you. This is not how things work. Creator source is made of entropy and negentropy, and both forces work together for the greater good of evolution. Because entropy, the forces of destruction, are here. So negentropy, the forces of creation and evolution, are going to fight forward. If the challenge wasn't there, evolution wouldn't have a purpose. Challenge is here to create the common purpose for evolution. Unity in a common purpose is how evolution of a civilization works. Civilization is like, take a human body. All the cells work as keeping it healthy. Are you going to include a cancerous cell or a virus into your body? Because you need to be inclusive and unite with everything. You're not going to do that because the virus or the tumor will work against the common purpose that your body has. This is the same with civilizations. When people come together to find a common solution to survive or to thrive, this is when you have to make choices and let go of what doesn't serve this common purpose for the greater good of the community. You have to let them go. Hope is this common constructive purpose. And it is by uniting in this common purpose that we become stronger. We become more confident in our own personal project because we keep them. We keep our individuality, our life, our personal purpose as well. But the actions we want to perform are for the greater good of all. And it is when we become powerful, when we work together. That's the unity I'm talking about, working together. Or we can't do this. And the deep state knew about it, knew that the power of unity for a common purpose. That's why they have socially engineered divisions into groups, into different reasons to separate people, mount them against each other. Leave conflict aside. That's not where you need to work. You need to work where there's no conflict, where people want to work with you, where you find people with the same ideas, the same ideals. That is where you want to be. So choose your ground and let go of anything or anyone that is going to want to stop this road. You can do it. We can do it together.